Welcome to an introduction to Navigator. This training session is designed for the new user who is not familiar with Pacific Life's life insurance illustration system called Navigator. This training will help you use Navigator by providing a general walkthrough of the software. I will first discuss the drop-down menus at the top of the page and focus on the features and functionality that are more commonly used. We will then look at each of the buttons in the two toolbars below. As with other Microsoft Office applications, Navigator has functionality that appears on both toolbars and in menus, so you can use it however you prefer. Finally, we will discuss each of the input modules on the left side of the screen and the inputs for the modules on the right. We will begin in the upper left-hand corner by clicking on File. If you then select New, you will see that you can choose to run a new illustration or access the Premium Deposit Fund Calculator. Under File, you can also open and save cases to include favorites, which allows you to customize and save your inputs. You can save as many favorites as you like. You might want to consider saving favorites for products, concepts, and designs. As long as your email is set up through Microsoft Outlook, you can send email input and output from this location by choosing the email option. It will automatically open Outlook and attach the file. Most of the selections in the Tools drop-down menu also appear as a toolbar button, so I will focus on Options at the bottom. Once Options is selected, you will notice the tabs across the top. I will touch on the options that are most commonly used. In the General tab, you can customize how Navigator looks. Popular selections are to show the Summary Values panel and the Dynamic Help panel. The Summary Values panel provides a way to see important information such as target premium, guidelines, and face amounts without running the illustration. The Dynamic Help panel displays help for the inputs as you enter information. You can change the folder locations in the Folders tab. You simply specify the path for each folder and Navigator will automatically save it to that location. In the Defaults tab, you can add your state and life insurance producer information as a default when creating a new case. You can also direct Navigator to start up with one of your favorites or as a new case in the Startup Options section. You can customize your email message and subject line in the Email tab. If you have Outlook and use the email link under the File menu drop-down, then this will automatically open up your email with this information already populated. Finally, the last drop-down menu on the far right is for Help. The Help contains the release notes for the current and all previous versions of Navigator. The release notes contain information and brief descriptions of all enhancements or additions made to each release. To make sure you have the most recent version of Navigator, you can select the Check for Updates option. If you do not have the most recent version, then you will be prompted to update Navigator. The first three buttons in the toolbar are also under the File menu drop-down. The buttons from left to right are for New, Open, and Save. The Calculate button to the right lets you choose from a list of output options and calculate it with one click. The Quick Values button provides important information regarding your case design, such as commission target, guidelines, and face amount coverages. The Columns and Preview buttons are in the toolbar as output options since they are the most common types of output for viewing. The Columns output runs very quickly, and its Excel format makes it easy to see the numbers. You will also notice that the output includes the Summary Values panel at the bottom of the screen. It includes a lot of important information to include the coverage amounts and target premium. Remember that this is optional and can be turned off if desired. The Preview button will run the full ledger, but it takes a little longer to generate output. The bottom toolbar begins with the Scenario button. This is a popular feature because you can add a scenario which simply makes a copy of your current case. You can then make any necessary changes. For instance, you could run one illustration at a 6% credit rate, add the 8% scenario, and in the Allocation and Distribution module, change the credit rate to 8%. Then you would have two illustrations in the same case file for 6 and 8% non-guaranteed credit rates. This can really save you a lot of time and keep all of the designs for a client under one case file. Next, we can select a product to illustrate by clicking on the drop-down arrow next to the product, which will bring up a list of life insurance products from which to select. Another way to pick a product is by clicking on the Product button. This will launch the product selection window. You can filter the products by any of the information in the upper left-hand corner. Other important features in this window include the buttons at the bottom of the page. For example, you can see all of the product's interest rates, underwriting requirements, and the selected product's rates and values. The Rates and Values booklet is especially helpful if you need to look up product information. When you click on the Concept button, you will see a list of all available concepts that can be illustrated with the product you have chosen. All of these concepts will still give ledger output, but will also have presentations and supporting detail in addition to the illustration. This walkthrough will only focus on the ledger concept. The Producer button will add the producer's information to the ledger. Make sure that you fill out all of the fields in bold, or you may get a red non-compliance stamp on the output. The last option on the toolbar is the Switch to Express Inputs button. Navigator Express offers a more simplified option to run illustrations. It includes simplified inputs that can be entered on one screen. The inputs and assumptions will automatically change based on the goal in the Solve For drop-down list. There is also a training video for Express that can be accessed through Lifeline for more information. Now that you are aware of the functionality of the menus and toolbars, we can shift our focus to how to input data to run an illustration. There are 6 input modules in the blue on the left side of the screen. Each module will have its own set of related inputs, which will be entered on the right. The first module captures all of the insured's personal information, such as name, age, and risk class. There will be inputs that you do not regularly use and will leave on default. A good example is the multi-life input. Most cases are not multi-life, so you would not make any changes to that default. The next module down is for the death benefit and premiums inputs. There are 3 common ways to determine the mix of coverage types for a design. The first plan design is basic coverage only, which obviously illustrates the face with all base coverage. Commission target is normally used when you're in a competitive situation or know how much target you want. You could use the Specify Coverage plan design if you want to direct or specify the coverage amounts between the 3 types of coverage. Each of the 3 plan designs are just different ways to illustrate how much of the face should consist of each type of coverage. Each input with a drop-down list will have selections that may include keywords. Please note that you can see help for each input on the right if you choose to show the dynamic help panel. You can expand or collapse the help panel by dragging to the left or the right. It is recommended that you use the help panel to get more information regarding the inputs and keywords. Some inputs have a schedule box that looks like a calendar that is just to the right of the input. The schedule box lets you schedule something on a from-through basis. A good example is the death benefit option. If you want to switch the death benefit option from increasing to level, then you click the schedule box to the right of the input and enter increasing from 1 through the year you want to switch to level. You may also enter the duration based on age. To do this, you need to put an A before the age, so for example, 1 through age 65 is entered as 1 through A65. The Reduce Face input will automatically reduce the face amount if possible. This is typically used in cash accumulation designs that maximize policy distributions. The premium inputs allow you to use the drop-down list keywords or specify an amount. As mentioned, the schedule box allows you to define the duration for the premiums. If you have a 1035 exchange or lump sum premium, then you can enter in the information by selecting the appropriate box. Both have external and internal inputs, which mean the premium is coming from outside of Pacific Life or internally from an existing Pacific Life policy. The Allocation and Distribution module captures your inputs regarding the credit or earnings rates and how you want to allocate amongst the separate accounts if it's a variable policy. This module may be called something similar but have slightly different input options which depend on the type of policy selected, such as a variable universal life or an indexed universal life. When you click on the Schedule box for distributions, you can use keywords or input a specified amount for the amount input. You can direct what type of distribution you want in the Action field. Remember to specify the duration of the income stream in the From and Through cells. Whenever you illustrate a solve, such as a solve for the amount of distributions, you will need to tell Navigator how much cash value to leave at a specified year. You enter this information in the Targeting section. Each of our products has its own set of writers. You will see them in the Writers module. You can use the dynamic help panel to the right for a brief description for the writer, but we recommend referring to the Rates and Values booklet for more detailed information. In the Policy Details module, you can choose the following: Avoid or tax modified endowment contract, which may restrict premiums; Cash value accumulation test or guideline premium test; illustrate current or guaranteed charges; select a cost of insurance guarantee period. Most of the time, this module is just left on the default settings, but may be used in some situations. Finally, the last module is called Output Design. You can select the output file type, such as Excel or PDF, from the Output option drop-down list. Remember that there are buttons in the toolbar for quick output, so you may not use this input. Pacific Life requires the new business submission package to issue a policy. However, you can also run a compliant or non-compliant illustration. Certain sections of the output are included or excluded based on this selection. If you choose the non-compliant output or only print a partial illustration, then you will see a red non-compliant stamp on the illustration. You can run additional reports and a commission summary under the Advanced Output section. Simply select the box to run a report. The Analysis of Charges report is a popular selection that breaks out each of the individual charges in the policy. This report is for those who ask to see exactly how the premiums and charges flow through the policy and result in the cash surrender values shown on the ledger. In closing, you may see some slight changes in the inputs or modules depending on the product or concept chosen. However, most of the interface is consistent and grouped in a similar format. Remember that there are useful built-in tools or features to include favorites, adding multiple scenarios for the same case, help screens, summary panels, and product information in the product selection window. These features can create a customized user experience and make the illustration process more efficient. Thank you for your time and consideration.